The last letter they met in the summer of 2008. It was a chance encounter, just a random meeting at a cafe, both looking for a quiet place to escape the city's chaos. He was a photographer, she a writer. The connection was instant. They talked about art, life, love, the kind of conversation that flowed effortlessly between two people who knew they were meant to cross paths. Their eyes locked with an intensity that made the world outside fade into nothingness. That day they made plans to meet again, and they did, often. For weeks they explored the city together. Each corner of it seemed more vibrant when they were with each other. The cafe where they first met became their haven. She would often bring her latest writing, and he would photograph her in moments of inspiration. Their chemistry was palpable, undeniable, like they were two halves of the same soul that had been torn apart by time and fate. They had found each other in a way neither had expected, and it felt like destiny. Their bond deepened over time. Every date was filled with laughter, lighthearted teasing, and intimate conversations about dreams, fears, and what they hoped for in the future. They spoke of the world, of love, of children they might one day have. It felt like the beginning of something monumental. They even started talking about moving in together. The excitement in her chest was a constant buzz, something she couldn't shake off. She had finally found someone who truly understood her. But like all good things, it wasn't meant to last forever. Slowly over the course of a year, the light-hearted moments faded, replaced by silence, disappointment, and unspoken resentment. They began to fight over the smallest things. The way he left his clothes scattered around the apartment. 2 months passed, and just as she was starting to convince herself that she could live without him, she found a letter. It was tucked into the back of an old drawer, buried under a pile of papers she had long forgotten about. The envelope was slightly yellowed, the ink smudged in places. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly in half. It was from him. His handwriting was shaky, as though he had written and rewritten the words countless times. She read it slowly, taking in each sentence as if it might be her last chance to hear his voice again. In the letter, he apologized for the way he left. He spoke of the guilt he had carried with him since that day. He told her he was afraid of facing her heartbreak, of having to say goodbye to something that had once been so beautiful. He wrote about how he had tried to move on, but every time he thought about her, he was reminded of the love they once shared. He spoke of the moments they had shared, the way her laughter had brightened even the darkest days, and how her love had changed him. He wrote about their first date, about the way she had looked at him across the table, as if seeing straight into his soul. He described their quiet nights at home, how he had loved the sound of her voice as she read her latest piece of writing aloud, how he had loved watching her lose herself in the words. He spoke of the things he should have said, the things he should have done, and the ways he had failed her. The most painful part of the letter was the last line. "I loved you more than I was capable of showing." She folded the letter carefully, as if holding it too tightly might shatter the fragile words he had written. The way she couldn't seem to understand his passion for his work. There was a growing distance between them, a space that neither could fill. The laughter, once so abundant, became rare, and the tenderness in their touch was replaced with frustration. The spark they once shared was now a distant ember, waiting to be extinguished. The days they spent together were no longer moments of joy. They were just another routine. They lived under the same roof but felt worlds apart. She had started to resent him for not trying harder, for not understanding the changes in her heart. He had started to pull away, to bury himself in his work, finding solace in the lens of his camera rather than the warmth of her presence. Their love had morphed into something unrecognizable, a shell of what it had once been, but neither of them could bring themselves to end it. One day, after a particularly harsh argument about nothing important, he left. No warning, no goodbye. Just an empty apartment and the lingering smell of his cologne. She didn't even hear the door close. It was as if he had simply disappeared. She sat in the middle of their shared home, surrounded by memories of the life they had built together. Her heart ached, but she told herself it was better this way. She told herself that this was the end, that she would move on and be okay. Days turned into weeks. She waited for him to call, to reach out and explain himself. But there was nothing. No text, no message. The silence between them grew heavier, and she began to question everything they had built. The house they had planned to make a home, the life they had dreamed of together. None of it seemed real anymore. The bitterness grew inside her, and she fought against the tears that constantly threatened to spill. She sat there staring at the paper, her heart heavy with the weight of his confession. She couldn't decide if she felt angry, sad, or relieved. In some ways, his words gave her the closure she had been searching for, but in other ways, they only opened the wound deeper. She never saw him again. The letter stayed with her, tucked in the drawer with the other remnants of their time together. She didn't throw it away, though part of her wanted to. It was a reminder of the love they had shared, the love that had slipped through her fingers like sand, the love that she would never be able to hold on to. Years passed and life moved on. She met other people, had new experiences, but there was always a part of her that remained with him. She wondered if he ever thought of her, if he ever regretted the way things had ended. But she didn't reach out. She couldn't. She had come to accept that some loves, no matter how deeply felt, are not meant to last forever. They are meant to shape us, to change us, and to leave us with memories that linger long after the final goodbye. She had learned to live with the silence, to find peace in the knowledge that their love, though imperfect, had been real. And though he was gone, a part of him would always remain with her, in her heart, in her writing, in the quiet moments when she thought back to the summer of 2008, the summer when their paths had first crossed. The letter was a bittersweet reminder of what could have been, and maybe in the end, that was all it was ever meant to be.